So I've been resin printing for a little while now, and I've been looking for a way to make one part of the process a lot easier. So I contacted Wham Bam Systems. They sent over a couple of products that hopefully will make my life a lot easier. What are they? How do they work? How do I install them? And in the end, are they actually going to do what they say they're going to do? That's what I'm here to find out right here on Kris Fabrications. Let's get started. So I contacted Wham Bam Systems, who I'm pretty sure are the first guys that thought to put a flexible build plate on a resin printer, and they helped me out by sending over not one, but two different flex plates for the two main printers that I use here in my work area. So I've got the smaller one here for the Photon, the original Photon from ANYCUBIC, and I have the much larger one here for the ANYCUBIC Mono X. So I've got one print all done on here. This is just a regular build plate that comes with the system. I'm going to get it pulled off, and I'm going to take a look at how difficult this is for me. Now, if everything works right, this is going to be a particularly difficult one, and I'm going to show you how hard it is to get off. If not, this is going to be one of those big failures where I won't actually show you, but I'll have to tell you that sometimes this is a problem. But let's find out what the results are here. Let me get a little bit closer as I pull this out. All right, so this is the Lich King from World of Warcraft. I chose this for a reason. You're going to see some more similar to this on this channel soon. Now this is the part where I'm like, it's either going to be difficult to get off or it's going to pop right off and I'll have nothing to show you. So first of all, here's me trying to get it off and making a big deal out of it. See, it won't come off, and I'm sorry about all those noises. That was horrible. But now let's see if it's actually difficult to get off. A little bit, but no, this one's going to pop off pretty well, and I have nothing to show for it. But just take my word for it. Sometimes they're a pain in the butt. Different printers, depends on how much you've used the build plate, depends on how often you've used the build plate. There's a lot that goes into determining how difficult it's going to be. I'm going to get him cleaned up real fast, and while he's going, I'm going to go ahead and show you what came with the build plate, and we're going to start cleaning this up so that I can put on the new one. All right, as I mentioned, I've got two of these. This is the one that I've got for the Mono X. It's obviously bigger. Let's take a look at what's in here. Okay, there we go. Into the box. Pull this out. There we go. All right, empty box, just like a live stream. Inside of here, let's see what we've got. Oops. There we go. And inside of here, let's take a look at the instructions first. We have the how-to instruction kit, covers what it comes with and how to install it, all that good stuff. Got sandpaper, and what that's for is in case we need to refresh our build plate because it's not sticking well or something like that. You can sand it down a little bit. This should be about like 400 grit sandpaper, I believe. Couple of Wham Bam stickers to show off your new love. And a little thank you card, of course. Looks like I have two plates. This is one of the two plate systems. So there's one build plate. And, oh, my wash is done. All right, and it looks like I have a second build plate. And so if you are a person that prints a lot and you're going to go through the build plates and you want to be able to go straight to your next print right after you're done with the current print without having to remove it or clean it or anything like that, two build plates, and you can order a 2-pack system and you are ready to go. And then this is the really nice, check that out, Wham Bam right there. And now this is what we install onto the existing build plate. That should fit right there. Very nice. And then, of course, I have the one here for the other printer. And we won't open that up right now. I'll just show you the end result when I get done on that one. So, as I mentioned, this is all done and clean now. Let's go ahead and get it out. So I'll probably go ahead and cure this as soon as it has dried. So it needs to dry first. You set that down. And as I mentioned, first thing I have to do with this build plate is it needs to be completely clean before I even think about putting that magnetic plate on here, because it's got to stick to this thing and create a really nice seal. So what I'm going to do, since I've got this nice cleaning system, I'm going to put that in there. And we're just going to clean it like a print. And that should get everything off of there. Let me show you what I'm doing. And let's crank it up a little bit. Let's give it, I'm going to give it a good thorough cleaning. We'll do 6 minutes on here. I'm going to go to 6, and we're going to wash it for 6 minutes. And while it's doing that, you guys won't have to wait. I'll be right back. All right, build plate all clean. Looks pretty good. Not like everything is off of there. There's still some residue and stuff. So I do think I'm going to need to do the rest by hand. All right, so spoilers, this next section here that I'm talking on top of is me installing the magnetic sheet and things going horribly wrong. But I wanted to leave this in here to show you that even those of us that supposedly know what we're doing and try to follow every step correctly, sometimes things don't go as planned, and I'm about to show you how this one fails on me. And I left this here so that you can learn from my mistake, because after this I get another shot at it and I do it right by following their instructions. So please watch what happens to me when I didn't follow the instructions and I didn't give it the proper time, and then you can follow along with me as I do it right and get a really good clean installation in the end. I'm going to make sure I'm over the table the entire time for this in case it pops off just while I'm getting the magnet off. Now what I'm seeing right now is it looks like I didn't either have that bed cleaned enough or it didn't have long enough to cure, because my magnet's coming off and that's no good. So I apparently did not do something right there, but let's see if I can get this off nonetheless. No, the entire thing is coming off. Something about the way I did this was not right, because the entire magnet is coming off of this bed, which means I can't actually get the flex plate off of here, it looks like. Okay, let's get this off of here now. I'm going to have to figure that out later, because I either did not clean my bed properly or something else happened, because there is now resin between there. And it just didn't stick, as you can see. I'm going to have to go run this past Wham Bam, because definitely not good. I've got resin between the two of here, even though I let it cure for 24 hours. Don't know exactly what happened there, but we'll come back to that. Let's see about the plate, and then we'll see, am I going to have the same problem over here? So build plate, boom. So the plate itself did exactly what it was supposed to, but unfortunately my magnet did not. Next up, let's see if I did a better job on this one, or if I'm going to have the same problem. Oh, see, this one looks like it's stuck just fine. So let's see, can I get it off? Yep, that one has no problem. I'm going to double check around this one, make sure I have no problem with it trying to pull off of this bed. A little bit on that corner. Yep. Still not totally cured. So yeah, I'm having that problem in multiple places. So let's go ahead, pop that off. But no problem at all here. Get a little bit closer. There we go. So now it is time to get both of these cleaned up. Obviously, you know, this is not okay. That's not going to work at all, and it's just going to continue to, you know, that's no good. So I got to figure out what's going on with these guys. I'll cut back in here, figure out what Wham Bam tells me. Then I'll get these cleaned up and show you the results. Hopefully get some replacements for these, and we'll clean it up. So after the initial attempt to install the magnets on my printers failed, I contacted Wham Bam Systems to see what may have gone wrong. There are two potential things we came up with. Number one, the original magnets that I installed, I've had sitting around here for quite some time, and since then Wham Bam has reformulated the glue on the magnets and so they should be a lot better than the original ones that I installed. So they sent along 2 new magnets for me to try. Number 2, and more likely the cause of the problem, was that I still did not take enough care when installing these magnets because I was just simply going off their written instructions. Turns out that there is a much more detailed tutorial on how to do this that you can find on their YouTube channel. So I've watched that video a couple of times to make sure I get this right, and we're going to go step by step now exactly how they recommend I install these magnets to my build plate. So I've got the new magnets, I've got a container to put some IPA in, I've got some fresh IPA, some 220 grit sandpaper, and I've got 2 build plates that I've done just my usual cleaning to. But as I found out, that's not going to be quite enough, so let's get started down here on the table. So first things first, like I mentioned, it's been cleaned once, but that's a normal cleaning. When we're going to want to adhere something to this metal surface, we're going to need to spend a little bit more time making sure that we penetrate into the metal, we get any leftover resins or anything that are in the metal out. So that's going to be several steps here. So first of all, I've got my 99% IPA, and what we're going to do, we're going to pour this into a Tupperware container that will at least cover the bottom of that build plate. And then we are simply going to put this in there, and that is covering the entire plate, as you can see. So what we want to do, we're going to let this soak. Recommended, I believe, in the video was 30 minutes. So we're going to do 30 minutes on this, and then we're going to be ready to go with the next step. Let's get going. All right, time's up on this one, so let's go ahead and pull it out. Let it drip off for a second. And as that drips for a second, let's go ahead, we'll grab a few brand new clean paper towels and give this a good wiping. Make sure that we get all of the residual resin or just the residual alcohol off of here. And then we can let this dry for a minute while we go ahead and start this one soaking. All right, so it's had a minute to dry. Now what we want to do, we're going to remove a layer of this metal off of here so that there's even a better chance that we are getting clean, untainted metal to apply that sticker to. So what I've got here, I've got a nice big piece of 220 sandpaper, and this is the nice kind that has like the non-grip coating on the back, so that's going to make this even easier. So we're going to apply this here, and we're going to start running this in circles and try to get some of the metal off. And as you can see, we're going to get some scrape marks here. It's going to get a bit of the metal off, like I said, and then we'll be ready to clean it off one more time and then move on to the surface adhesion. Now I'm not applying a whole lot of pressure here, just enough to do the job, but I'm letting the sandpaper and honestly the weight of the platform itself to do most of the work. As you can see, if it's working, you're going to get some of that metal dust on here, and you're also going to see it on the table, so you know that you're actually taking off some of that metal. All right, so this one's all done now. Shake it off, and while that one's drying, we will then put this one back in here to get off all of those shavings that we just created using the sandpaper. Now we want to get off all the shavings off of this, so we're going to pull these paper towels out again. We're going to clean it off until our paper towels no longer have any of that residue on it. But as long as we're not seeing anything on there, this one should be ready to go. And we are, of course, going to let this fully dry before even attempting to attach the Wham Bam magnet to it. So we're going to set this off to the side. If this one is ready to go now, which I think it is, now we can get this one sanded down and go through the same process. All right, so these should be good and dry now. I've given them probably about a half an hour to dry just to make sure, because I really don't want to screw these up. So as you can see here, I have my new magnets ready to go. Pull these out. So how are we going to do this? Again, following the video, we're going to make sure we keep our hands off of this plate. We don't want any oils or anything like that. We are then going to, I'm going to actually start with the top. So let's go ahead and pull this off. And they recommend that we fold it down. And then just start from here. I'm going to line it up very carefully. And make sure front, back, sides, everything's all lined up. We're going to start at the center and work my way out, which is what they recommend. And then once we're going good on there, we can actually reach down here, grab our little, now I'm touching the plate too much probably, but we need to be more careful. I'm going to go ahead and start pulling that out. And then they recommend you start here. And then we're going to go out, start here, and go out. Of course, what we're trying to do is keep any bubbles from forming underneath our plate. So if we're working from the center out, we're hoping that nothing gets trapped under there. And then we're really going to be careful as we get towards the end, because we do not want the plate to just flop down on us. I'm actually going to leave just the tip as we finish this up. All right, now we'll pull that last part out. Again, center out. And now you can make sure that everything looks good. I'm going to make sure I've got really good adhesion here. I'm going to give it a good push. And I think that went on pretty straight, maybe just a little off, but it'll be absolutely fine because I'm not actually over the edge here on anywhere, so it's not going to have any problems. Now, last time I made the mistake. It said we should be good after 24 hours, so I said, okay, 24 hours. But what I really want to do is wait the full 72 hours as it recommends in the instructions. So I got 3 days ahead of me for a full cure on this. We're going to go ahead, of course, install the second one. And then after we're ready for this, 3 days down, and we will be ready to get this in our machine and try again. Do want to check one thing real quick. Are we seeing any peeling on the corners? I'm not. All right, so let's get this last one done, and then we'll be ready after 3 days. All right, so the 3 days are up, and it's finally time to see how these magnets adhere to the build plates. I'm going to just do a cursory look at these, see if the corners seem to be sticking well, and if so, I will go through the motions of showing you how I install these into the printers, which will include the bed leveling. So, first of all, on the Photon, seems to be stuck extremely well onto here, and there you go. Looking really good. All right. Next up, let's grab the one for the Mono X and see how that one looks. All right, so there we go. Looks good. So I think that these build plates are ready to go, but we won't really know until we actually dip these in resin for a complete print and see if there is any pilling after we're done. I'm going to show you the bed leveling on both of these, and as I do that, you'll see that the bed leveling isn't the same on these two. These are a good representation of the two different types of bed leveling you may have to do. So let's go ahead. I'm going to start off with the Photon, then we'll move over to the Mono X, and then we'll get to those test prints. All right, so with the Photon Mono, first thing we need to do, let's go ahead and pull out the vat with the existing resin. Now we can safely work inside of the machine. All right, since this type of resin printer does not have the adjustable build plate here and it is fixed, it is expecting this distance to fairly be constant because there's not a whole lot of give here. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to have to add a little bit of a spacer in order to make up for the gap difference now that we are having with this build plate on here. So underneath here you can see that there are 2 screws that hold on the height adjustment for the build plate. So we're going to pull both of those out. And once those are out, what you will have needed to do is either on an FDM printer or on this printer before you took it apart, you need to print this little spacer adapter. Now this is 2.6 millimeters, and if you have this kind of printer, there should be one of these available from the Wham Bam website. Usually links over to Thingiverse and you will find this little adapter. This is what it looks like on this printer. I'll have a link in the description to the one I printed, and then you'll see that this lines up right here and it should just go together really easily. Now if you are printing this on an FDM 3D printer, make sure that you are printing it out of something that is chemical resistant. I printed this out of PETG, so we should be just fine, but I would avoid things like PLA for this application. Now I'm just going to make sure that we have this in here right, and now I can just reinstall that in the same holes as before. These screws are just barely long enough, but I do think that they're long enough to get the job done. All right, so now we should be hitting that limit switch sooner to make up for that gap. We'll go ahead and take our new build plate. We will then grab one of our freshly cleaned, usually with IPA, Wham Bam sheet. Let me see, where do I want this? I'm gonna put it on this corner. I'll pop that on there. Be careful with your fingers. It is a very tight magnet. Now I can put this on here. I'm going to loosen this up as always. Now once that's loose, we're ready to do the bed leveling with a sheet of paper like we normally do. So let me go through that real quick. And that stopped right where it was supposed to. Now if this is good, the sheet should just have a little bit of give to it, but not too much, and that's what we've got here. If we want to, we can move it down just like a 0.1, make it just a little bit tighter, but not too tight. I like that right there. I'm then going to line up this build plate, hold it down, and tighten it as usual. All right, once that's done, I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit Z equals to 0. It says, am I sure? I say enter, and settings should be okay at this point. Back up, tools, move Z, 10 millimeters, and let's get this up to where we can get the bed installed and ready to print. All right, we're ready to go. So back it up, and let's try to get that print going. And this is going to be this awesome raven and skull print, printed in this translucent green. All right, so here we are at the Mono X, and we're ready for the next installation. Now, unlike the regular Photon over there, this one has the adjustable screws on the build plate, which gives us our Z height adjustment built into the machine. So we'll just loosen these up. And once these are loosened up, you'll notice this moves freely, and this gives us that Z height change, unlike that machine where we had to print the adapter. So what I'm going to do here, let's first of all get the vat off of the machine. Let's go ahead and get our build plate installed. There we go. Now this doesn't slide a whole lot, but yeah, I've got that on there. So now I can go ahead and put it back on here, screw it down, grab our sheet of paper for leveling. Then we're going to go ahead and press the home button to bring it back down to the bottom. You'll see that Z height adjustment handle automatically. Now that that's down there, we will simply hold the plate in place and then manually tighten this back on here. There we go. Now if this is a little too tight on here, you can move it up a little, just probably 1 or 2 0.1 millimeter steps. just to try to free up that build plate just a little bit. And there we go. It's a bit looser, easier to move. You can decide how tight that needs to be. You may have to experiment with it a little bit, but I kind of like that. Z equals to 0 is on this screen here, and I'm going to say enter, and I'm going to say yes. All right, so that should be good now. It's going to raise it up for us, and now we're ready to start the print on this machine. And on this machine, we're going to be printing a base for this guy again, and we're going to see how it does when we need to peel it off that new build plate. Slide that right back in place. And let's give it a start. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to say go. Now there we go. We've got both printers running again, and we will come back in a little bit when these are done and see how the new build plates did. Okay, so the prints are done. Let's take a look, make sure that the prints turned out all right, and then make sure that the build plates have held up against the resin. So first of all, we'll do the Mono X here. Pull it off. Looks like the print has done extremely well. We will get up close to pop this off. Let's make sure that the other one turned out okay. On the regular Photon, that print looks like it turned out fantastic also. So we'll get up close. I will get the peeling of this off the plate, and we'll pop these off, make sure that they work like we expect, and then make sure the magnetic bed is still well adhered to the build plate. All right, so for the Photon build plate, let's take a look at this one first. One thing I noticed on this one is there was a shift in the build plate during the print. Now, I do want to point out that this is something that in their installation video they did mention that something like this could happen, particularly if you used a large raft on your print, which is what I had on this one. This was one I had already pre-sliced. So because of that, there was probably a lift force once that picked it up, moved it over slightly. So this is just a good lesson. If you are installing the flex plate system, instead of one large raft, which you shouldn't need, you can go with smaller, tiny rafts, and that will create less of a lifting force that could potentially pull your entire piece up and shift it over like this. The other thing to note is they recommend not doing an edge-to-edge print like this because, again, you're leaving very little metal on the side to provide magnetic hold when you have lots of suction. So decrease suction, try not to print edge to edge. Those are just two things you need to keep in mind that they mention in their installation video. But with that being said, let's get this off of here. Luckily, it did not affect the print because, of course, up here we don't have nearly the suction forces that we did down below. Let's pull this off. Just grabbing the tab. There's a lot of forces on that, but it did come off. We'll check that in a minute to make sure that it is still held. And then let's get this out of the way and let's see if that pops off. Well, it appears that unfortunately the actual raft has stuck to the plate better than the supports have. Not a big deal, I'm just having to be more careful. But you can see here, if I'm more careful and selective about how I pull this off, it still just pops right off. No problem whatsoever. That still looks good to go. Now this is ready to go into the cleaning. So let's go ahead. Do we have any peeling off of this plate? I'm not getting any on this corner. Not getting any on that one. Nope. So this one seems to have done much better than my last one. I'm not getting any peeling on these corners. Nothing is coming off. Of course, I'm not trying hard. I don't want to damage it on purpose. But even with a little bit of force, I'm getting no peeling. And as we saw, I peeled this off without any problems, peeled this off without any problems. That seems to have held up well. Now we can go clean both of these off. We're ready for the next print off of the Mono X. All right, Mono X build plate ready to go. Let's take a look. Again, the print looks fantastic on here. No problems at all with the print. let's go ahead and see. No shifting on this one. Notice I had plenty of magnetic hold around the edges, so the build plate had no problem holding, even with a large raft, because again, there was enough magnetism here to hold it down like it was supposed to. Let me pull this one off. No problem getting that off. That was easy. And does it pop off? Yep, no problem at all. That popped right off. And again, a nice print, ready for the cleaning vat. Looks really good. So 2 successful prints popped off. Oh, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Make sure there was no peeling. Make sure this one's going to hold for a good long time. Nothing there. Nothing there. Nothing there. Nothing there. So another good magnetic installation on that one. All right, let me get these prints cleaned up. I'll show you the final products, and then we can talk about the build plate system. All right, so the prints are done, and they look fantastic. Obviously, Wham Bam system, no impact on the actual quality of the prints, but they still look great. So what are my final thoughts on this system? Well, number one, the installation is time consuming. I showed early in the video how my first installation failed terribly because I didn't follow all of the steps that they recommend that are in their installation videos. So beyond what I've shown in this video, make sure if you get this system, go watch their installation video. You need to follow all the steps to make sure you get really good adhesion on that magnetic bed to your build plate. Number two, the Wham Bam system is an upgrade that is a quality of life upgrade. It is, as I said, not going to make your prints better, but it may make your life a bit easier when it comes to actually removing these prints off the printer. While I wasn't able to show it at the beginning of this video, there's many times where I find myself really scraping with one of these big metal scrapers on the build plate to get a print off a resin printer. With one of these build plates, you won't have that problem. You'll be able to crack it off. And as I showed here, sometimes you're actually going to crack off the supports, which in most cases is going to be a really good thing. It's going to save you a little bit of time. So once I got the Wham Bam system installed, I have to say it worked really well, worked really easily. Now, on the smaller printer, I will say it may reduce your build plate just a little bit if you're going to have a lot of supports, because as I showed, if you get it too close to the edge, if you have too much suction on there, it may pull up a little bit, and that could obviously be a problem for you. But on the larger build plate, I think you're not going to have that issue as much. Most of your builds are not going to be taking up the entire build plate, or you're going to have a lot of magnetic force around the bed that's going to save you that issue that I saw on the smaller build plate. So let's talk about cost real quick, and then I'll wrap up. So on the Photon, the smaller of the two, it's 135 by 80. For this printer, it was $34. If you want it with the 2 build plates instead of just one, it's $46, so $12 more, you'll get 2 plates. On the larger printer, the Photon Mono X, and this will also fit the Photon Mono X 6K, it was $46 for the single plate or $66 for 2 plates. Obviously, more surface area, it's going to be a little bit more money. These are just costs for here. Go check out the Wham Bam website for how much it is for your particular resin printer. I think they pretty much have the market covered, and if they don't, be sure to contact them and let them know that you need one for your machine. So would I recommend these? Again, quality of life, not actual quality of prints improvement. If you've been using your printer and you find that, like me, sometimes you really have a tough time getting it off, totally recommend this. It's definitely going to be what you've been looking for to really pop those prints off, save you a little bit of time, save you that elbow grease, particularly if you find that it's, number one, dangerous to be scraping like that, or number two, it's just not something you want to do and potentially damage your build plate while you're doing that. So I think it's a good purchase. It's not going to be needed for everyone. Will I install it on my other printers? Again, depends on the build plate. Some build plates are perforated and you may not see the issue. Some build plates have textures, may stick a little too well. So again, that's up to you. So if you're interested in purchasing a Wham Bam system, please check out the links in the description. Those are going to be affiliate links that help out this channel. I'm going to have direct links to both of these, as well as a general link to the website. There's also going to be a code there that should save you some money on these. So you help out yourself, you help out the site, go check those out. Now, if you're interested in either of these models that I printed, I'm going to have links to the Patreons where I found these. Now, these are both pay-for models from artists that I support on Patreon. They have these models and they have models like this that may interest you. So as I wrap this up, I want to thank all of my Patreon supporters that make this channel possible. It's a new year. If you've thought about joining me here on this channel, now is a good time to sign up for my Patreon. I've got a whole lot of new type of content coming, as well as my usual content on upgrading 3D printers and such. So again, thank you for everyone for joining me. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions about this, or maybe it's a couple months down the road and you want to know, am I still using them? Am I still happy with them? Please leave a comment below. I respond to almost every comment on the channel, at least all those I see. That's it for today. My name's Chris, and this has been Crazy Fabrications. Thanks for watching.